Yesterday afternoon, I provided an update on these levee work, on the levee work that was under exploration that would have impacted 22 homeowners. As with all things in an emergency situations, things are very fluid, and I need to be very clear, the levee option is no longer being considered and will not be built. Our crews are considering every option for addressing the situation in front of us. Teams at the site worked overnight to evaluate the situation at the scene and are currently building a temporary replacement for the dike. And we have a photo of this work. Today, the Canadian Forces military personnel are on site and will be in the area over the coming days, so you may see them out there. Right now, we have 64 soldiers on the ground in Abbotsford, which represents the first arrival of the 120-person Land Task Force response unit that we understand is being deployed to support the city's efforts. As of today, our structural engineers have assessed 10 bridges, and our geotechnical engineers have inspected 32 kilometers of roads and 70 culverts, 70 culverts. And I want to pause for a moment because I haven't done enough of this. I do want to acknowledge the immense efforts of our city staff, especially our engineering team and the first responder teams that are leading this emergency response, as well as the contractors who we have mobilized to support us. You know, I looked at the org chart in the back in the war room, what I call the war room. There's at least 70 of our staff that are tasked with leading us through this. And the staff all know who they are, but I want to thank every one of you. Without you, we would never be where we are today, so thank you. Today, 680 people remain evacuated from the Sumas Prairie. At the last update, we had approximately 340 people who have utilized supports through the TradeX evacuation center. We expect more than 60 people will be staying there tonight. We know this continues to be a very stressful time for these people, and we are working around the clock to find the best solutions to get residents access to their homes as soon as possible. The safety of our community remains our number one priority, and the situation remains critical here in Abbotsford. We understand that people are desperate to get home to their property and livestock. Like with all emergencies, it is vitally important for people to heed the advice of our emergency officials and follow the restrictions in place in order to ensure the safety of our first responders. I've seen photos where we have down power lines in water. I know it may look safe to people, but it's not safe until we've done risk assessments of what's out there. That is going on 24/7. And so, my heart goes out to the farmers because they want to get back on their land, but we don't want to lose. We have had no injuries or tragedies that we are aware of as of this moment. And I don't want to have anybody out there as a victim. So please heed the advice. We are there to serve this public and to keep it safe. And with that, I'm going to open it up for your questions.
Mayor Braun, just to clarify then, the 22 homeowners you talk about, that's the 10 properties that we discussed yesterday?
No, see, I did something yesterday, because I know you were looking for a number, and I gave you one. I said between 6 and 12, and then later on I said 10. There's actually 22.
Okay.
So I corrected that. I said I would get the right number. Yes, so that's the right number.
And I appreciate that. So just to be clear, given the levy is not going ahead, these 22 homeowners, their properties will not have to be sacrificed at this point?
Well, we were never going to sacrifice them. They were going to be, they're already impacted by the water. And they would have been impacted for a longer period of time with the levee, had we gone ahead with the levee construction. So those properties, there will be no additional impact to them beyond what they have been impacted by through the water.
We're hearing that the the gap in the dike that is the bigger of the two that you spoke about with the 100-meter gap.
Yes.
That's expected to be filled in the next 1 to 2 days?
I have instructed our city manager that I want to see that dike closed before the next rain event, which is scheduled to arrive, I think, Tuesday morning or Monday night. So, yes, the answer is that will be closed.
How big of a task are we talking here? We're seeing dump trucks going in with rocks one by one because there's only so much room. They're lined up ready to go.
Well, this is where the planning session, you know, people, they sometimes say, nothing has happened. We don't see anything. There is an enormous amount of work that has been happening in the planning. We are now in the execution stage, and that will happen very rapidly. The logistics of all of that, if somebody wants to know from our engineering staff, I'm happy to provide them to you as a sidebar. But it is an enormous task, and that's why I started off, because when up until I even walked in here, I'm getting more information, and I can't answer every phone call. It's just I'm inundated with emails, texts, and so for those that I haven't responded, I'm not ignoring you. My focus is on the safety and this flood event. So
there was a lot of confusion this morning, concern on the ground from residents about whether they're going to be impacted because of the levee or not. People were packing. They were on the move with their personal belongings. As far as the change in the decision, why is the levee no longer needed and the focus is now on fixing the dike?
because the conditions on the ground have changed, the water has equalized on both sides, so we don't have water pouring into the bowl. And so when we learned this new information, we had some options that we didn't have before. And and things may change in the next 6 hours, and we may, not this part, but we may have to deploy forces in other areas to do something else. I don't know what that is yet, because it hasn't happened. But of the 22 properties, we have talked to 19 of them before this morning, or this last night and this morning. I know some people criticize us because they were caught unaware, and that was probably my fault because I was giving you the most up-to-date information that I had yesterday at 4 o'clock. And so I made sure our staff, I said, I want everybody contacted. Now, there's 3 that haven't been. But they all know this, and some of you may have already talked to them about this. Anyways, anybody else?
What makes you confident that the dike can be patched in time for Monday?
The consulting engineers that are working with us, our own engineering staff, and the contractors have been poring over this plan. I have every confidence that this plan, you will see this plan come Tuesday morning, complete. I mean, the breach complete in that 100-meter. Scheduling and planning that's gone into this, and so.
So just to be clear on the timing, we're expecting, I believe, a bit of rain Monday, but the rain on Tuesday is what you're worried about. That's the deadline, and I'm assuming what we're going to see 24/7 work ahead of that?
I'm not worried. I'm concerned with 80 to 100 millimeters of rain. Our system will take that. What I don't know is the integrity of the existing Sumas dike. The Army is on the ground inspecting, walking those dikes to look for weaknesses, and we've already found some weaknesses. It hasn't let go, but it could let go 10 minutes from, or maybe even as I'm here. So that's what they're doing. Our staff and consulting engineers and the geotechnical engineers are out on the western portion of Sumas Prairie inspecting those bridges and roads so we can open that traffic up to bring the feed trucks in. I think the last count I had, there is 15 feed trucks that have already gone in. But on some roads, it's not yet safe. And so that's why I said people need to heed the emergency responders. We know what's going on the ground. They don't.
So, are you optimistic that things are...
Yeah, I'll get the mic there because I had a complaint that we can't hear the question.
Are you optimistic then that the worst is over for Abbotsford, that this is going to be the solution, or is this still
No, no,
very much a crisis situation? You talked about possibly other areas are weak and you could see other breaches.
Yes, that dike has been weakened. To what degree, we do not know that. But I am concerned that we get that repair done so we can channel that water to the levees, or to the floodgates, which we still can't open those. The water during the night only dropped like 6 inches. I was hoping it would be 2 feet. Well, it didn't. So we have to wait. We cannot open those floodgates until there's at least a foot differential between the Fraser River and the Sumas River. And the minute that happens, we're opening them up, which will really contribute to letting a lot of that water out, seven times more actually than the pump system that we have there.
You touched on the feed truck issues. I got a call saying that, from a very distraught farmer saying that feed trucks are now not being allowed in again, and their animals are not getting the feed that they need.
Well, that's true. That's a yes and no answer. The feed trucks, I said earlier, 15 feed trucks have come in.
Right, but this afternoon they're saying that now they're being stopped.
Well, that depends on which roads they're trying to get in on. I was out there yesterday afternoon. We have erosion 2-3 feet deep. There's asphalt that's crumbling. If they're trying to get on those roads, somebody's going to get killed. They're going to die. The feed truck will go. Those ditches, those are irrigation ditches. In the summertime, we do the reverse. We pump the water from the Fraser into Sumas Prairie, and with 3 different zones, irrigate all the 22,000 acres of agricultural land. So when you drive by them in the summertime and wonder, why are these ditches all full? Well, that's by design. The Army Corps of Engineers that developed that system 100 years ago were fairly smart. So that's what the farmers use. And if a truck goes over, we won't even know it's in there because that water is 20 feet deep in those ditches.
I know that we're still early days and everything's happening right now, but is there any indication about if any permanent fixes might be made down the road?
Oh, that is assessed. First, we're focused on the emergency and the repairs. We have a lot of work in front of us. Those I can see just from wandering around in my own construction background. We have washouts on roads, half the road's gone. I'm sure we're going to find when the water recedes, there's going to be damage to that structure. I will not be surprised if we have to, I shouldn't say that, my staff will get mad at me, but I can see that whole structure, that whole dike having to be repaired. Not repaired, rebuilt to a higher standard.
Mayor Braun, when you talk about that the Army is out there making sure that the integrity is there as far as the rest of the dike, you mentioned weaknesses. How many more weaknesses have been identified in the dike that may have to be shored up?
I have no idea at this point. It's just from the photos, some of the photos. I've seen enough construction stuff in my life to know that there's a problem. There's a potential problem there. But first, we have to fill those breaches so that the water stops. Well, right now it's stabilized. But if with the flood event, this gets back to the Nooksack. I'm concerned about the Nooksack again overflowing its banks. And if it does, that water is coming right back through Sumas, across our prairie, and into that bowl. And that's what we're trying to stop before the next rain event, because what if it's 200? I mean, so anyways, so that's the reason for it. We have to do things. There's a methodical, we take all of the elements and we break them down and then prioritize them and move. And that's what we're doing. And that's what our staff is doing. And I am just so unbelievably proud of them, because this is a significant operation. And I'm so proud of them.
I was just wondering if you could describe those weaknesses. Like, what do they look like? How do you recognize them?
That's not what this is about. If you want to know what those are, our city engineer is here, our city manager is here. We can do that as a sidebar. I want to give everybody opportunity with what I've shared today first. And I mean no disrespect.
Mayor, just one question.
Yes.
You've touched on over the last few days, in the level of the Fraser. What's the latest information you have on the level of the Fraser and whether the floodgates can be opened?
The Fraser was 2 feet. It was 2 feet. It had to drop 2 feet yesterday. It only dropped 6 inches, so it still's got to go another 18 inches at Barrowtown. And I'm hoping. I hope that by today we would be able to tell you the floodgates were open. So they aren't. Anyways, I think I need to leave it at that. If anybody wants to talk technical stuff about what conditions are, our engineering staff will be happy to assist you.
Mayor, just the breach at Cole Road, has that been filled in?
It hasn't been filled in.
Close.
Well, I don't, I don't know. I know that they were sourcing contractors and material to close it.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Oh, and we're going tomorrow at 2 p.m. We're going to do them once a day, and they're going to be at 2 p.m. Thank you.